Hey, everybody, welcome into this incredible room. It isn't the room, though, that makes it incredible. It's the people that come into the room. And I think there's also something that happens in this room. It's become so second nature to me that I take it for granted sometimes. But there's something that happens in this room where people just feel loved and accepted, listened to and heard, and acknowledged and validated. That something magical often happens. All the defenses that they hold up around the world, or the silos that they build to protect themselves, they realize pretty soon they don't need to hold anymore here. And those fall off. And what emerges is who the person actually is. And in some cases, it's the first time that person's even seen themselves because they've been siloed up for so long that they forgot who they were. They think that they've become the silo. We think we've become the silo. I think I've become the silo, right? Because we're so used to having this protection around us because we're so scared of being hurt, because we've been hurt so much. It's completely understandable, right? Nobody, there's nothing, there's no judgment in any of that. But what's beautiful in this room is when you just love and accept somebody, listen to somebody and hear them and acknowledge and validate them, often all that falls off and they don't feel the need to have it. And we get to have real conversations with real people rather than telling us what they do. This show is sponsored by the book over my left shoulder, wherever my left shoulder is. It's the Mosaic. And really, had COVID not come, this show would have been happening live and in person, as I would have traveled from town to town, village to village, place to place, sitting on street corners and boardrooms and hospitals and jails and prisons and in hate groups and love groups, and sitting with people and just having these conversations face to face. But COVID came. And now I sit in the comfort of my own little sitting chair, in the comfort of my home, and travel around the world. We've talked to people in every continent and have the conversations like this on Zoom. And the book is fitting to be the sponsor because it's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So as a little boy, he sets out in search of the place called heaven. He doesn't know if it's a shop in town or a place that he has to get to or what happens. And so everybody he meets along the way, he asks them about heaven, what's going on. But he never really asks them about heaven. He just sits with them and talks with them. But it's not the people that he imagined he would meet. He doesn't meet the clergy and the religious and the holy men and women and the medicine people and all of that. He meets common, ordinary people. He meets the trash man and the road worker and the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he wonders, why am I sitting with these common, ordinary people? What are they going to show me about heaven? And then he says, but I'm here, so I might as well just sit and listen to them. In every single case, what happens is when he sits and listens to them tell their stories, he realizes he had no idea who the person was when he first walked up. He had a preconceived notion of them by what they looked like or what they did. But when he spoke to them and heard their stories, when he listened to them really more than spoke to them and heard their stories, he understood that there was something much, much, much more to these people than he had ever dreamed possible. And he learned a ton from them in just listening to the trash man coming and collecting people's trash, or the road worker fixing up the potholes in the roads. He started to realize that every single one of them was tailor-made for his own experience. And they could come to him, they became archetypes that helped him live his own life. My sponsor will be very happy with that. If you like the book, he'd be very happy with you. If you went to Amazon and picked up a copy of it, it would be fabulous. It's about to come out on audio. It will be available in the next week on Audible. So fabulous. And thank you, sponsor. Good night. We have now the opportunity to sit in real time in this room with Dana Pierce. Dana, welcome to the conversation. How are you? Who are you? Tell us what brought you here.
Thank you. Wow, that is an incredible story. And my name is Dana Pierce, and I think what brought me here was to challenge myself a little bit, to step out in the world, to be seen, to be heard, like you say, I think that's something that a lot of us have challenges around. So it was definitely, and I just want to say, I love this container that you hold. It's really beautiful. I am a self-love coach.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and so I'm so much relating to what you're saying, because I feel that this is really ultimately what I do for others. This has been my purpose and my call. And I kind of didn't know walking into this what to expect. It's
Yeah.
very it was very it was just a recommendation from a friend to step in, and as I'm listening to you, I'm just realizing in coaching, this is one of the things that I learned, that probably if I do nothing else with my clients, if I do nothing else, if I had no tools, skills, nothing else at all, but I actually just listened to them and heard them and allowed them to be seen, um, that was truly a gift. It was truly a gift, because it's not something that we're experiencing in the world. We are often not seen and heard in our own lives, in our own families, in our own relationships, in our own, everyone's so busy, and everybody kind of has their own stuff going on. And so it's yeah, it's definitely a so thank you. I love that I get to be on the other side of this. This is really this is
Yeah.
fun. And I feel it, like I actually enter, like I can feel that that holding of space, to really show up and be authentic, and maybe even vulnerable.
Maybe even. Beautiful. And I just want to bring the listener in, because I just want you to see, like, Dana and I have no idea who each other are. We've never met. We've never spoke. We had one occurrence where she was going to where she scheduled and couldn't show up, could have been irritating, wasn't irritating. We ended up just rearranging and finding another time. But there's no way that we would know any commonality that existed. Just like you would not know any commonality that would exist with the strangers that I'm going to invite you to talk to in your life. And yet within the first 2 minutes, what she's doing and what I'm doing are almost exactly the same thing, right? And so how does that happen in a world where people are strangers? And can you see how important it is just to open up the door, talk to people we don't know, and see how much we share in common with people that we don't know, that we would never know, that we would never be a part of. And who knows what will happen as a result of this. Some of you will come and work with Dana. Some of you will come and won't be a part. And she's a stranger, and is meeting a stranger in front of other strangers, and maybe we all become friends. So how beautiful is all that?
Yeah, I love it. I just love it. And what's coming up for me is um, I wrote this. I turned 50 recently, and I was writing something, and I think the first
50 months you're talking about, right?
Yeah, right. Thanks. No, 50 revolutions around the sun.
I
And
love
I
that.
was writing that one of the things that I realized is that one of my superpowers, as I like to call it, is that ability to deep listen and to really hold space for people, and not just hold space for them, but like, what does that mean, right? But to sit with people, to be with people, my clients, friends, whoever, from a place of unconditional love and non-judgment.
Love it.
Yeah.
So let me circle around a little bit, because the way you started and these I really want to now get a little more right into you, if we can. Is that okay?
Okay. Absolutely.
And as I gave you permission to in the green room, if I ask anything that doesn't feel right to answer, just please don't answer it, okay?
Okay. There.
I'm trying to put it in a way that makes sure, if this comes across any way other than just complete love for you, it's my inability to be able to say the words that I feel. For a person like yourself, who holds that space for people and loves people and opens the door for people to be themselves,
Mm.
What do you feel about the way you entered into this room with a little bit of like, this is an experiment. This is a push for me and a challenge for me to be able to open myself up and be seen and be heard. Why would that be the case? Like, what is that challenge? Because I think there's so many people that are listening that are in a similar place.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can shed, personally what it is for you that's challenging for you, when this is your work, this is what you do, you hold that space for people. Why, when the space is held for you, would you feel challenged?
Yeah. I love that. What's coming up for me is sort of I think there's an old saying of like the shoemaker's kids don't have shoes,
Yeah.
right? Or they have holes in their shoes or something like that. So my experiences in life, many challenges, much trauma, many very difficult situations are what brought me to this work, are what brought me to that level, I believe, of empathy and compassion. So it allows me that ability to hold space for others. I still work on my own dynamics with it, right? I still work with my own ability to, I think that's why I chose self-love when I got into my coaching, was because it really starts here, and it's a practice. It's something that I've been practicing and learning for many, many years, is to love myself unconditionally.
Yeah.
Right? Is to be non-judgmental with myself. So it's a skill that I've honed because I've had to honor myself with that. Does that make sense? So as I've honed that skill, I'm very much able to do that for others. And I think
So can I
it's
jump
often
in?
easier to do it for somebody else than it is to do it for yourself. We know
Okay. I want to jump in if I can,
yeah.
because um, it's so easy to go into the story. I want to take you out of the story.
Okay.
I want to push everything that you've ever said before to the side,
Okay.
because I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in this one simple place because I think it's so powerful and so potent and so revealing for us as listeners in this conversation of how is somebody with all that you have, all that you know, all the things you've gone through, all the things that have brought you to the place where you hold that space for somebody else, who is a self-love coach, knowing that it all starts there. Still challenged and vulnerable in a real way. Like this isn't a confrontation. This is a revealing, because there's so many people that are not as conscious of what they're doing as you are. And for them to be able to see, gosh, here's somebody who does this, and here's somebody who is, and she too is still, challenged by being on the other side where people ask questions and where she's vulnerable and maybe even vulnerable, and what is that challenge that you see right now in yourself, not in all the people you worked with?
Okay.
What is the challenge in you right now that says, this is a challenge for me to show up this way?
Yeah, fear.
Fear of?
Well, yeah, fear of what?
First of all, I love you for walking this way with me. Okay.
Yeah,
And I want you to know you're completely safe here.
I feel that. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, and this is why I showed up today.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and I'm grateful. Um, fear of. I mean, without it's interesting because there's so many parts of me that want to go back into the story.
Yeah.
You want to go back into the story. What do I feel? I feel like I can feel like anxiety, right? I feel like in my gut, right? Like I feel that kind of like, oh, like, maybe some of it's like, oh, am I going to give the wrong answer? Am I not going to get it right? You know, there's some of that. There's um, shame is a huge one. I was just did an intimacy retreat on the weekend, and shame is just like such a big piece that comes up around, am I going to be shamed? Am I going to be, you know, are people going to, you know, are they going to I think these are all the pieces that come up: shame, fear.
So, so are you worried that you will be shamed by others, or are you worried that you'll be shamed by yourself?
And this is what I found on the weekend, was that it wasn't about others, that it was really shaming ourselves, right? It's that shame within ourselves. Yeah,
So will you try and do me a favor? And I know, like, I love Dan. The reason why Dana is in the room now is Dan came into the room as a stranger also, and you're of the same ilk. I did for Dan the same thing we're doing here. And it's almost as if people that are drawn to people who are drawn to people do similar things, right? And
well, he said if you're he'll ask you uncomfortable questions.
yeah,
So if you're not, like,
yeah.
he prefaced it, and that was my yes. That was exactly my yes right there.
So stay with me there,
Yeah.
because, and I want the listener to also hear, not in Dana's voice, but in your own experience. How often do you go back to story? How often do you go back to that safe ground where you can feel safe, where you are not the one that's being asked the questions, you're the one that's being given that is giving the answers. And how for you as a listener, comfortable are you with having your answers questioned? I was recruited by a company called Vistage, and Vistage works with CEOs and they take CEOs of companies to do retreats for CEOs of companies. And I ended up not going with them because of things that I didn't agree with and certain things, but they had a great sort of slogan that they used. And they said, when people come here, they think we're going to answer their questions. But in fact, what we do is question their answers. And I said, darn, I wish I had come up with that, because that's what I do, but I give them credit for it. And so really what I want to just do is question some of the answers that you give, which are the stories that you're so comfortable saying, not because I want to poke holes or shame or any of that, but just because in this moment where you are completely safe, there's nothing bad that can happen. There's no wrong answer you can give. I will love you no matter what. I will accept you no matter what. I will hold the space for you to fall down, and I will lay down with you if you fall down and help you up until you're able to get up. So there's nothing you should be ashamed of. We're just people doing what we do, and we're here for each other. We're broken pieces of a mosaic that come together to make something more beautiful than it was before.
Yeah.
What are you scared you will shame yourself for?
You know, I'm just going to say the first thing that popped into my head was rejection, being rejected, like that I'm going to somehow embarrass myself, or I'm going to say something and that I'm going to be rejected.
Yeah.
So that sense of belonging is a big one.
Have you felt rejected in life before this moment?
Sure.
Is that a theme that comes up and circles around for you in general?
Yes.
So if I can just take a step back for a minute again for the listener and just ask the listener, what's your thing that circles around? Look how beautiful this woman is. Look how intelligent she is. Look how much love she has in her heart. And still this story of rejection circles around, so much so that there are tears in her eyes right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your story that circles around the listener? That takes this beautiful, intelligent, tremendously capable woman who puts this film over her that I might be rejected, rather than standing up and saying, who cares? If I'm rejected, I'm rejected. This is who I am. I love who I am. I'm going to be here. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to discover something about myself.
Yeah.
Tell me about the tears that are in your eyes.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. It all links back to story, right? It's like the story of who we think we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a favor as we go forward?
Sure.
Can you replace we and us with I?
Yeah.
And make
effort to do that.
and make this as you know, just you and me right now. Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
One of the things the Mosaic showed me is a really simple formula. It's not new. I don't think I discovered it. I don't think it came through that. I think it just came to me through that in a way that I understood it.
Yeah.
It was our thoughts become our words make up our stories, and our stories become our life.
Yeah.
Where in the equation of that equation do you have a story that you will be rejected? And that if you are, there's shame in that rejection.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly.
Is it a thought? Is it a word? Is it words that you've said over to yourself? I mean, so we have thoughts.
Gotcha.
Our thoughts become our words. So we start saying these words of, I think it's rejection. I think it's this. That rejection then builds into a story of so many times I felt rejected. And that equation of rejection suddenly equals shame, or it equals embarrassment. Like, there's tons of people that are rejected. I mean,
yeah.
But they don't feel shame. They just feel like, oh, that's great. I just got another, like I'm one step closer to being where I'm going to be, because that obviously wasn't for me, right? There's nothing in that process that is shameful or rejecting. It's right. They understand that's the process they got to walk in order to get to the place to get, because in this whole world, not everything is for them, right? Everything is not for them except the thing that is for them, and they'll be rejected by everything else that's not theirs. Yeah. Right? Does that make sense?
Totally.
So where in this?
And I'm just watching where you're helping me connect dots for myself personally here, which is you're quite magical. You're very good at this.
Thank you.
So the first thing that comes up is I was born to a 15-year-old mother, and then I was given up for adoption.
Okay. Right.
So I think it started in utero. Right? Where she was shamed, sent away from the family, like that. So, and it started there, like it really did. And then I was in foster care as an infant for 3 months. And then I came into a family with a mother who was very wounded. A lot of shame there. I was bullied horribly in school. Shame there. I was molested by my grandfather when I was 7 years old. Shame there. It just, yeah, and like I was saying, I love this because this is really putting pieces together for me, because I just came off an intimacy retreat on the weekend where I started to connect those dots of, because I felt like I had done the forgiveness work around my grandfather, and I had done I had done these pieces. And when you asked me that question earlier, what it came to, what I realized on the retreat was I hadn't forgiven myself.
Yeah.
I hadn't. Yeah. It was me that I needed to forgive.
And what did you do wrong that you need to forgive yourself for?
Well, it's interesting because as I'm sitting here thinking about it, in that place, nothing. I was an infant, or a child, or, whatever, a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay there. Stay there in those emotions.
Yeah.
Is this rare for you to feel those emotions, or is this natural for you to?
I think it's natural. More natural now than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks to the work that I do, though. If I didn't, and I don't mean as a coach, I mean, I'm always learning as well. I'm in a somatic trauma program that I'm working through this year. And so that's my journey. And that's where I coach from, is because this is my journey. Like I said, this is where what I'm learning for myself, for my own growth.
So if you would go underneath the shame, what's the shame protecting you from?
If I can go back to your other question, because it would be really helpful for me in this process. I feel like I'm in a coaching call here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is awesome. No, it's good. No, it's good because it's. So you asked like around my shame. So I think my shame has come from the connection of that. Has come from the way that I've lived my life, the relationships, and does that make sense? Like, because of those experiences, it was a certain story that I held, and then I relationshiped, or I experienced myself in the world in a certain way.
Yeah.
That's where the shame comes in.
So
because it was attached to, like, even sexually. I mean, let's open it up here, right? I mean, after being molested as 7 years old, I attached all of my sexual relationships from that point on, from that place. So I carried that shame. My grandfather didn't do that to me. I did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, your grandfather contributed to it, but you continued to carry the ball, I think is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
So what I want people again to, again, I never knew Dana before she walked into this room, okay? For this beautiful woman to be this vulnerable, this honest, this forthcoming, this open to an imperfect stranger like myself is a testament to who she is. And are you the type of person that we're talking about being shamed that she might do something wrong, and she might be, but look how open she is and vulnerable and sharing with herself. So, some of the stories we tell ourselves are not the real reality of the way we live our life. If I can share with you a story, my dad passed away when I was 13. The story of the Mosaic's my story. Mm. And he came in to say goodnight to me before he left on a trip, and I was going away to camp. And he said, I'm going to say goodnight, and I'm also going to say goodbye. I'll see you at camp because I'm leaving early in the morning. And I said, well, there's no way you're going to leave early enough that I'm not going to get up to see you and say goodbye to you and give you a hug and kiss before you go out the door. And he said, Danny, I'm leaving. I have to be out at 4 o'clock in the morning. Don't wake up. Let's say goodbye now. I said, Dad, there's no way that's going to happen. Well, 4 o'clock came and went, and I was sleeping, and I never got a chance to say goodbye to him. And then he passed away 4 weeks later, making love to my mom. My waking up had nothing to do with the heart attack that he had making love to my mom. But I made up a story that said if I would have woken up at 4 o'clock to see him before he left, he wouldn't have passed away. And I lived that story for a lot of years because that story made me feel safe, that I don't live in a random world where the person that I idolized and adored and I loved more than anybody in the whole world could just randomly be taken from me for no reason. It had to be my fault. Hmm. What does your shame protect you from seeing?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
Okay. And for the listener, it's not important that you come up with the answer in the moment, but it's important that you ask the question. And is there something that this horrific situation, this feeling of feeling shame and going through life feeling shame, the story of being raped by her grandfather, and that going into every relationship she has in her life. Our thoughts become our words become our stories create our life. Well, you see what's happened there. You see what happened with me. I started to take on this thought that everything was my fault, that because it was more comfortable to me than living in a world where I was uncertain and I was not in control. Right. And so, but that wasn't true. None of it was true. If you'd ask 1,000 people in the street, did my not waking up make my dad die of a heart attack, making love to my mom 4 weeks later, no one would say yes. Right. So there's no correlation between it, except I made a correlation. And that story became the story of my life, which was an untrue story.
Powerful.
You're really powerful, right? I'm trying to listen to where to go here. Where does trust fit into your life? Not from the right answer, but from the actual answer.
Yeah.
I love that. First of all, listener, do you feel what's happening right here? And do you feel the shifts that are happening right here?
Yeah. Yeah, knowing the what's the quick response and what's the real response. Yeah, I wow. Yeah, I would say I'm this incredibly trusting person. I'm very open. I'm very, yada, 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 yada. And from a deeper level, I also run a story that I'm only safe when I'm by myself, that I really can't trust anyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, do you feel the courage of Dana in this moment? And how beautiful a human being she is to have that courage. And do you have that courage, listener? It's so easy to go back to the stories of what's the right thing to say, what we've been taught, what we should say. And it's only in a room where someone actually cares enough about another human being to ask, what do you really think, that the stories start to diminish and who we are comes out. Mm-hmm. What does it feel like to be a person who trusts everything but realizes that she really doesn't trust anything except herself? And do you actually trust yourself even?
Yeah. I would say I am growing. I am learning to trust myself.
You can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody listening can feel that by just the openness and who you are as a human being. So in spite of the fact that my book is black and white, my shirt is black, my beard is white, the wall is white, at least I have a colored chair. I don't want to create black and white worlds. Mm-hmm. But I do want you to just, like, what happened for you when you just realized that moment of shift? Mm-hmm. Where the story was, I trust everything and I'm very open, I'm vulnerable, I'm here. But you just realized, maybe didn't realize, but at least just said.
Yeah.
Claim, right?
Claim it. Yeah. I've definitely been on a journey for the last couple of years, more deeply into this. But yeah, just claimed it.
It's something I've been realizing. It's something I've definitely been realizing over the uh, past while. I was married for 20 years, and I came out of that marriage about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and that's where a deeper step into this journey started for me. Um, and I, where this really came up was when I realized after stepping out of that marriage that no one was coming to save me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we are on our own to a degree, and it made me really, really look at that and imagine. Again, go back to my story of abandonment and being on my own as an infant, and all of that, right? What has been a salvation for me is faith in something greater than myself.
Yep.
There have been moments through the last 3 years that have been terrifying as well, and a realization that, so trust, I feel like I'm learning that trust is not just about trusting myself. It's about trusting in something beyond myself.
And it would be so easy to not trust in that with all that you've gone through. Because there are so many people that go through that and say, how can I trust in something bigger than me, who's led me through this path? For those people who are listening, how do you keep that trust? How do you keep that trust and that faith that you have? What allows you to trust that bigger voice when other people would look at it and say, well, that's the reason why I'm going through all this? That, like, why isn't that person here? Why aren't you carrying me? Why aren't you not? It's the story of, why aren't you here? And they say that you're on my back. Look, the footprints you see are me holding you on my back as we carry, but we don't see that. We see just one set of footprints.
Right. I just used an analogy the other day. I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what gives you the faith to be able to do that?
So sort of a little process is coming up of realizing that we're all in this human condition. So trusting others or not trusting others is it's precarious, because they're just being human, right? We're all human. And, this was part of my process with my ex-husband was, well, if we blame and, and finger point and, well, it was him and he didn't do this and that. Well, he did the absolute best that he knew how.
Yeah.
He did. He was just being him. And, as I was with what I knew in the moment too, right? We're all, and I realized in that, and I still love him very much. And I realized that, he didn't do me wrong. He didn't, there was no ill intention. There was a lot of love between us. There still is. But he, and yeah, and he, where was I going with this? Trust. It wasn't really about trusting or not trusting him, right? It wasn't about, and then it turns back on self. Do I trust or not trust myself? Right? And where am I not trusting myself, and where am I not believing in myself? And I think,
so can I stop you?
Sure.
Where are you not trusting yourself and not believing in yourself?
Through my marriage, I didn't believe in myself at all. I didn't trust in myself at all. I completely quit myself.
What would you have done differently had you trusted and believed in yourself?
That's a big question, right? Like, I'm not sure.
you know, I think I love myself enough now to say I did the best that I could. I mean, I did what I knew at the time. I didn't, I mean, hindsight, I mean, could I go back and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there could have been, there's a multiple of timelines that, that
Oh,
it could
totally.
have looked like, who knows, right?
Let me try it different. Let me try come in at it a little bit differently. We started out our conversation, and I love when a conversation comes around full circle. We started out our conversation talking about the beauty of listening, about the beauty of accepting, about the beauty of loving and hearing and listening. If you were to look at the situations in your life, all of the situations, the abandonment, the rejection, all of those things, what's the story? What's the story they were whispering in your ear that you might not have heard yet?
I'm just hearing empathy and compassion for
Beautiful.
self and others, right?
Beautiful.
I mean, that's really just, and yeah. And I guess that's ultimately why I'm able to do what I do as you're doing it so beautifully as well, is just be able to hold that space and just be empathetic and compassionate. And yeah.
So I have a developmentally delayed daughter who can't speak like you and I speak, but she counts on me to hear her and understand her.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, most of the time, I do. I don't know quite how it happens. We're just that connected that I understand her when most people don't. But there are a lot of times that I don't understand her.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I don't understand her, she'll yell, thinking that I'm getting old and I probably can't hear her. So she has to say it louder. That's normally not the reason, although, you know, I understand why she would think that, but it's normally not the reason. So when she yells it and I still don't understand her, she'll tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And when she tantrums and I still don't understand her, she'll attack. She'll try and rip my shirt or bite me or bite herself or do something. And I wish it happened, chick, 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 like it all made sense. So I can, like when I say it now, it makes sense. But her time frame's different. It happens over the course of days or maybe even a week. And so all of a sudden she's tantruming for no apparent reason in my head, but for her, it's exact reason.
Yeah.
It went on for a long time, and it happened a lot times during the day. And finally, in the midst of her rage, while she was running at me and attacking me, I said, hold it, Lisa, you know I love you more than anything in this world. You know I want to understand you more than anything. I just can't understand your words. It's nothing you're doing wrong. I just don't understand. It's like, can you say what you're trying to say to me in another way without using your words? She stopped in the midst of her attack, running towards me. She stopped, big smile on her face. And in perfect English, she said, I am Daddy. And I said, I'm sorry, what the F do you mean you are Daddy? Like, how in the world are you doing that? This has been going on for 15 years. Why won't I know you're doing that? How are you doing that? And she pointed her finger to the side of her head. And I understood from that she was putting thoughts in my head. And I said to her, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts in my head all this time? Because I thought I heard you, but I just didn't trust it. And she just started laughing, uncontrollable laughs that caught me in a contagious laugh that went on for 15 or 20 minutes. From that moment on, she's never yelled, she's never tantrumed, she's never attacked again. And it happens sometimes 3, 4, 10 times a day for 15 years. What I understood from that is bigger than even that. I mean, had it been only that, and that I have now a way of understanding my daughter by listening better to what she's saying in my head, most beautiful thing that could ever happen. But I saw the same thing happen in the world around me. I saw the same thing happen in the situations. I saw the same thing happen in the way we think our way through our life. Everything is speaking to us if we listen to it. When we don't listen to it, it needs to yell.
Louder.
It needs to yell louder. When we don't listen to the yell, it needs to create chaos and create scenes and disrupt other stories that we have. And when it doesn't do that, it starts to attack us, just ourselves, and we get disease or pains or suffering or painful relationships or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What do you feel underneath all that? Not empathy for other people, but what do you feel that all has been whispering to you? That is what we're looking for.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. I'm hearing that shame isn't real.
Shame isn't real.
No. Right. It's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what if shame wasn't real? What would be real?
Mm. Our ability to just show
My
up.
my ability.
My ability. Thank you. My ability.
To,
I'm claiming this.
I love it.
My ability to really show up in the world authentically
I love that.
in my truth.
I love that. And that emotion means that there's something really real there. Right. And so when I asked you earlier, what is that shame protecting you from?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a really good friend because it's allowed you not to have to show up because you haven't been ready to do that quite yet.
Mm. Yes,
Can you thank that shame and say goodbye to it right now?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Dana, I want to honor your time because I know you have to stop in the hour. And I want to thank you so much for what a beautiful human being you are. To come into this room and be so open, so vulnerable, so real, to allow this process to take you past where you wanted to go, even with it, where you, right?
It's perfect though.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. There's absolutely nothing. This is like the moment your daughter said, "Well, Dad," it's like this is it was
Yeah.
exactly.
Huge moment.
Thank you.
And the shift that happens when we actually take the time to just really listen to a person. I just want the listener to, I want you to love Dana from where you are for the work that she just did today and for just the example that she showed you. And I want you to do that same work in your own room. You know, what is it? What is that moment where you suddenly see everything that you've seen before from a different perspective? The heaven that the Mosaic talks about is not a place or a being or something. It's that moment where everything you see shifts to a different perspective and you suddenly see it differently. And I want you to take a look at, listener, for yourself. How is everything that you're doing in life trying to give you the answers to the question you don't want to look at the answer at? Is it any wonder that Dana's work is to be a self-love coach? And can you hear how important that whole process of letting go of that shame, thanking that shame, so that she can love herself enough to show up and just be the person that this beautiful human being that who cares if she's rejected or not? There will be people drawn to her like bees are drawn to a flower to take her honey. There'll be some mosquitoes that won't come to the flower. Who the hell cares, right? But she's here to show up, to draw the people that are her people to her, and to just love and accept that, and love and accept herself. I want to thank you for being here, Dana. I want to thank listeners for listening. And listeners, if you've liked this and gained value from it, what do we do when we like something? We tell our friends about it. So tell your friends that you liked it. Let them have the experience of this experience along with you, just like you would if you had a good meal at a restaurant. You would tell them, you got to go to this restaurant and order this. It's really good. You got to go to this person and order this. It's really good. Okay. And just feel that and accept that. And I want to leave you with the challenge that I always leave every show. Look at what's possible when you take a moment, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 35, 45 minutes to sit with someone you don't know. Look how much we share in common. Look what happens in people's lives. Look what's possible if we just come in without an agenda and just listen to what someone's saying and love and accept them and hold that space for them. Your challenge from me is to find someone you don't know and do the same thing. When we live in a world of strangers, the world we live in is a strange place. When we live in a world of friends, and how long did it take for Dana to become my friend? Instantaneously, but if you want to give it 45 minutes, give it 45 minutes. The world becomes a friendly place. And the world needs being a friendly place. Dana, before we go, is there anything else you want to say to people or say in general?
No more shame. Let go of the shame. It's not real. And I want to take a moment and thank you. This has been you are a gift. You're truly a gift. And this has been a priceless 45 minutes for me. And I am deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for your presence.
It is my honor, and to the extent that you see that in me, I'm going to see myself as a mirror that you see that in yourself, because I think that you did all the work. I just sat here. It's like I had a spiritual teacher when people came up to him and said, "We want to thank you for being this person," and he had a picture of his teacher behind him, and he said, he just started laughing. He said, "It's funny, he does all the work and you're giving me all the credit." I want to say the same thing to you. You did all the work. You're giving me the credit. I really want to thank you for showing up.
We need that mirror, though. That's really important. We really need that mirror. Because our ability to do it ourselves is challenging, right?
Absolutely. In the moments that remain in their moments, we're going to have all your contact information and show notes. What's the best way? What's the one way you always check so that people can get in touch with you?
Probably through, what is the best way? Through Facebook Messenger is probably the best way to contact me.
So we'll have all that there. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you folks for being here. And until the next stranger walks into the room, no more shame, okay? Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself. And show up, just like Dana's showing up. Show it up. It's not painful. It's beautiful.
It's worth it.
It's
so worth it. It is liberating.
And the world wants to see you. Share this with your friends. And until next time, we'll see you later. Ciao.